You are now listening to the Going North podcast, where you'll receive tips and techniques to advance yourself. I'm your host, Jon Brightmon, and every week we're going to be hearing from an author who's going to share their expertise to help you charge forward in life. On a quick side note, be sure to check out Going North the book. It's available in ebook, audio, as well as paperback form for those who love to read a traditional book. Now let's get on with the show. Hey there, all my folks out in Baltimore, especially in the Cockeysville area. Clear your calendars on Saturday, July the 7th at 1 p.m. I'm going to be having a joint book event with my good friend, fellow author, and podcast host, Mark Greatness Hunter, called Going North to Greatness. At this event, which is free, I might add, you are going to be hearing some powerful messages, some inspiring messages, some uplifting messages that will help you to focus on going forward to better, to breaking through, and to go north to your greatness. You'll learn how to overcome self-doubt, network with others, and hear some important messages that will help you stay inspired to charge and chase after your dream, and also to remember to encourage others. So go over and to Eventbrite, type in Going North to Greatness. It'll be hashtag GNTG2018, and I look forward to seeing you there.
And today on the Going North podcast, it's international, baby, because we have one heck of a guest for you today. This wonderful person right here is a multi-award-winning coach and author with a who's who clientele. He's a CEO, and he is the founder of the Image Group International, and this is an Australian-based corporate and personal brand image advisory and coaching organization. And you're probably wondering who this wonderful person right here, who is Australia's #1 image coach. It is the one, the only, Jon Michail. How are you today, sir?
How you doing, Dom? Great to hear from you. How's it all going?
Oh, it's going north today.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to sharing with you today, and of course, enrolling your listeners into some of the great stuff we want to share with you.
Oh, yes, sir. They're going to be in for it, baby. They're going to be in for it. So, mind, tell us a bit about yourself and how you got to where you currently are today.
Sure, I'm happy to share that. Well, look, basically I'm an Australian, obviously, as you've already shared. I come from an immigrant family that grew up on the wrong side of the tracks and virtually did good. I'm inspired with what I do really to, educate and bring awareness to people. And in my work, that's what we focus on, but basically bringing a better side of you than currently exists. I'm also happily married, have been married for over 30 years, a father of 2 sons, and my wife, Patricia, is also a major part of my life and, of course, our business success. Now, originally, I was a designer for numerous famous brands. That's where I started. I went into manufacturing. I had a couple of hundred people working for me. That led to importing and distribution, including some of the biggest fashion brands in the world, Giorgio Armani, Gianni Versace, Yohji Yamamoto, Comme des Garçons. This is before a lot of these brands were available in Australia in the early days. Had a lot of learning lessons doing that, and that led me into, by accident really, the whole retail world, where I started my own fashion network of stores. So I had about 10 stores, and it was all based on upmarket, mostly menswear, high quality fabrics, beautiful make, great fit, with the what I would call contemporary classic with a twist. We had 10 stores, and then my real love, though, was not really product, although I have a high appreciation for it. It was more people. So while I had the business going, I also set up a side business in consulting. And of course, you set up all these side shows along the way, not knowing where they're going to end up. But that's where my true calling came, from the perspective of then working with people and becoming then a coach. Of course, consultant originally, advisor, and of course, ultimately a coach. And so I've been doing this now for 29 years. I'm contrarian by nature. I'm practical, at the same time passionate and heart-centered. That's what the feedback has been from people that know me. And I'm definitely a rebel with a cause.
Amen indeed, and congrats for the 30 years of marriage with your wonderful wife, Patricia. That's awesome.
Awesome. I think that's probably the most successful story I've got to share with you. So we can make this actually a marriage counseling session, if you like, and talk about how to do that.
Oh, man.
Because I got to tell you, you know, when you not only have I been married, but my wife has been a very important part of the business. For anyone of your listeners out there that has worked with a partner, they know how tough that is and how many learning lessons you have along the way. So I'm really proud about that, you know, and the whole vulnerability about all of that, I think, is really what makes you strong. And it's such an exciting time, and at the same time so rupturous if it's not handled properly, you know. So definitely a lot of experiences from that, but I love it.
That's really great indeed, because it kind of goes to show the fact that the person you decide to marry will either improve your life and add on, or they'll take away and just really destroy it almost.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely.
Oh man, so with all of that, that was with the image consulting. Now it all makes sense with all the designer name brands like Giorgio Armani. That makes so much sense now.
Yeah, so that was the background, you know, and it is unique because my original mentor that I started this was Robert Ponte from San Francisco, that we became partners in. And I also worked with the famous Dr. Jon Michail from Dress for Success. Of course, was the #1 seller in the 70s in the States. It became a worldwide bestseller. So that's the pedigree that I started from. But, you know, as I said to you, you know, my approach in image consulting, so it's very clear, it's an inside-out approach, basically looking at the internal with the external and not avoiding or being in denial that one is not important and one is more important. For me, everything is important. In other words, everything matters.
Yeah, that's true indeed. You could be dressed to the nines on the outside, but if you feel like junk on the inside, it's going to show eventually.
100%, Dom, and that's the point here. So with our clients, it's not about just looking good and going nowhere. It's working also internally on what's not supporting you there. You know, what's holding you back. And in the world, especially the Western world, full of mental crisis right now, it's definitely essential that you face the mirror and start questioning some things that at times are not working, you know, and being open and vulnerable to that. I think that's a good thing, especially for men. Even more so for men. Even more so for men that at times are afraid to actually open themselves up. The mastery, that's the beauty of the work that we do with our clients. You know, that's where you get really, really enlivened after sessions where you've actually made that sort of impact on clients to basically start viewing themselves internally maybe a little bit differently. Especially alpha males. It's so exciting to do that because miracles happen when you invite vulnerability.
I love that.
Thank you.
Miracles happen when you invite vulnerability. Oh my gosh. Okay.
You can use that, by the way.
And you'll get credit, of course. Always got to give credit where credit is due. MasterCard, Visa, got to give credit where credit is due.
It's all good. It's all good. It's all happening. All right.
Yeah, so with the internal struggles, especially with vulnerability, I'm pretty sure there have been times when you had to overcome some inner struggles. Mind sharing a couple of those times you had to overcome some things to become the Jon that you are today?
Yeah, well, that's constant, you know, and I think that's an overcoming. If you're open to transformation, is for the rest of your life. You know, the know thyself does not stop after a certain period. It's forever. But, you know, the things that you get, I suppose, on the journey, this is what I got anyway, you realize that this life, right, is just one big game. And like every game, there are many written rules, and then there is what I call the unwritten rules. What I believe you've got to really, really, really learn is the unwritten rules. It's what really goes on and at times has not been communicated. So how do you do that? You know, that's really the key here. And maybe we'll talk about that as well. important thing here. So growing up in the neighborhood, for instance, you know, you've got to know who the players are, you know, that are playing the game, but not necessarily being part of their game, if that makes sense. Yeah?
Right.
You know, in the late 80s, in 1987, with the stock market crash, and by the time we sort of really got that, hey, there's a real problem there, I ended up losing millions in property development. That was also understanding some of the unwritten rules, right? You know, just because things look good on the outside, from an iceberg perspective, underneath, there was a lot of dangers lurking that I wasn't paying attention to. That's also something you learn from, and that was, you know, a big learning lesson. And from a humanistic point of view, probably the biggest learning lesson or overcome factor that's come in recent times is the death of my younger brother a few years ago. That really was the biggest shock in my life. That really, again, got me to face the mirror and say, hey, we're not invincible, and basically our time on this planet's very short, and you don't know when that time comes. This is definitely the three probably big ones that are so memorable to me. And of course also becoming an image maker. You know, from one day I was a designer, and then I became an advisor to individuals. That probably wasn't the biggest leap forward, but certainly it is a different way of being, because, you know, you're in people's spirits then when you're coaching, as opposed to just dressing them up or advising them. But from day one, and I got to tell you, you know, and if you've done the research, you'll check out, you know, I've promoted a holistic approach from day one, even in our fashion stores, a holistic approach that everything matters. So my values on that, and of course that's what we taught through our programs, is basically around extrinsic and intrinsic values. Everything matters, like I mentioned earlier. So who you are on the inside must be congruent with who you are on the outside. Otherwise, there's an incongruency there, you know, and the world sees that. You know, Dom, whatever happens to you in life, really, it's neither good or bad. It's an experience. You know, you choose what you're going to do with that. But what I say to people, from family to clients to friends, etc., is this: never ever walk around in life as a victim, even if you are one. Why? Because there is no power in it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the only real power in that, which really isn't too much power, is just attention. And it's good attention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the power is with you, what to do with that. Now, if that motivates you into greatness, hey, good on you. From a business point of view, of course, also entering the Asian markets 30 years ago, and also specifically launching in the Chinese market, where I've been running seminars there since the year 2000. Again, fairly unique because, you know, new customs, expectations, different ways of doing business there has also been, you know, a gigantic learning lesson. And even then, publishing my first book, Life Branding, in the year 2000, was also a big learning lesson, and of course, a great trials and tribulations along the way to get it actually published. So there's been a lot there, you know, and hopefully there'll be a lot more. But for me, it's like you don't stop, you just keep on growing.
Yeah, that's true indeed. I mean, it's kind of like we're all giant oak trees, just growing with every year, getting some more knowledge.
Yeah, getting stronger at the base. Getting strong at the base so you don't get hooked by the latest fad that is promoted to us, you know, that this is the new gospel, where really the foundations, the roots are already there. We don't have to recreate what works.
That's true indeed. That's true indeed. So for anyone out there who is really looking to embrace their dream and just take their trials for what they are as just moments and decide to maybe break out into the fashion industry or at least publish their book, what advice would you give to them?
The number one advice is get mentored by the best. Find the right people and hang around with them. Learn your craft and just go out and do it. And just do it is really the key here. At the same time, along the way, you know, you don't have to be the best to put out your best. Like Socrates said a long time ago, act as if, because the mind actually loves playing to the action. Okay, so you got to set it up in your mind first before you get into the zone. So you fake it till you become it. You know, I have many clients. Oh, I'm going to do this when I become that. I'm going to do that when I get actually that next certificate or degree and put it on my, or I'm going to start a business when I get my business cards done. I just say go and do it. Give it your best shot. That's what entrepreneurship's all about. If you're an author today in the year, 2018 and moving forward on, if you specifically are not thinking like an entrepreneur, okay, you're doing it the old-fashioned way, because that's what's going to get you to specifically get noticed and, of course, ultimately sell your books, right? Otherwise, what's the point of writing if no one's going to read your stuff? So it's important that you put it out there and you start basically who you really were designed to be. And that is somebody that the world needs to discover, because you've got a great message to promote and obviously make a difference with. There is so much information on the planet right now, yet so little wisdom. Have you noticed that?
Agreed. Agreed.
And wisdom is the key here if you're going to go back to the oak tree and the foundations and the roots. So what I say is start your speaking business, start your book, start any business for that matter, start your invention, start your relationship, start your family, and for God's sake, start your life. And for me, everything I've just mentioned to you is part of entrepreneurship. And what entrepreneurship translates to me is creativity, innovation, being out there, being self-expressed. That's an entrepreneur. Somebody that specifically wants to make a real big difference to the planet using some of those skills that traditionally the education system does not teach us. And that's the key here. It does not teach us, and that's a little bit scary. And if you study the greatest entrepreneurs in history, I think you'll discover a lot of them were dropouts. So part of also answering your question is, avoid the myths. There's so much myths out there, so much fake news. It's essential. It's essential regarding that. Otherwise, you're just getting programmed and entering the world of the sheeple. You've got to basically have the courage and the guts to look outside that. Associate with the best. I mentioned that earlier. Definitely, for me, that's the biggest. And ignore the news, ignore it. Trust me, if there's going to be a world war tomorrow, I'll call you and let you know. Don't worry, you'll find out. You don't have to get you don't have to get caught up in the negativity and the games that go on designed to make you feel helpless and feel like, you can't transform your life and of course, more importantly, make a difference to your family. By the way, it's called TV programming for a reason. Have you thought about that?
Oh, yes. I believe it was a stand-up comedian, Eddie Griffin, that said the same thing. Television program, and they program in your mind.
Exactly. So, through your podcast and the great audience you're obviously communicating with, hopefully we can talk about a few more subjects that mainstream would say, oh, these are a little bit more esoteric. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're actually very practical and real.
That's true indeed, especially with entrepreneurship and mentoring. I'm pretty sure you still have mentors today that are helping you out, right? To this day, I have two mentors that I see regularly, if not once a month, or once a fortnight, definitely once, depending if they're in the country. That's why I say that. But definitely regularly, and always challenged. And let me tell you something. Sometimes I just can't stand being in their space because they challenge me too much. But that's the point with all of this, because you've got to be vulnerable to move forward. There's no point. And let me tell you, once upon a time, of course, in my early 20s, being a designer, winning awards, beautiful people around you, your ego can get out of control. Yeah? Agreed.
So, your ego can get out of control, and you start to create an identity that really is not you. But, that's how you do whatever you do to survive. But, having done a lot of personal development work on myself over the years, been a big supporter of that, and my family, by the way, and my kids have done similar. It's about really just constantly growing. And that's where, mentors come into play there. And by the way, and I've got to say this, and my mentors will tell you the same thing. They would say also in our relationship, I've probably been a mentor to them as well, even when I wasn't supposed to be.
Wow.
Yeah, because everything's a two-way street, right? I'm not a little kid, I've traveled the world. I've been to, over 50 countries. I've seen a lot of things. Sometimes you hope you hadn't seen those things. So all of that becomes part of your embodiment, and there are experiences you can't pretend they didn't happen. They are, you know, they are definitely, they might not identify who you are, but they're definitely part of your experiences.
True indeed, because mentoring gives you a chance to realize how well you can listen and learn from others. So that's very true.
Yeah, 100%, man. I love that, and that's why, you know, when we started earlier, obviously pre the official interview, you know, I wanted to know a little bit about your life as well, right? Because, you know, all of that helps. I mean, you can learn from everybody, and everyone that comes into your life has come there for a reason. That's my philosophy.
Amen, indeed. So I'm pretty sure there have been some books to help you define that philosophy. Mind sharing a couple titles?
I'll share the one that's made the profound difference to my life, and that was well over 30 years ago. And it was a book called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. So the subtitle of that is Perils and Opportunities of Reality. Being an image maker, of course, awareness and all of that was an essential part of what I was interested in and am interested to this day, but also was very interested in exploring further. Really, the book was all about was really wake up. It's all an illusion. So I got so excited by reading this book and being really fired up. I looked up the author and I was given his details. The book was published by Doubleday, by the way. You know, I got his details and basically I followed up where he may be, where he's situated. And this book, by the way, it's not religious by any means, but he was a Jesuit priest, right? Although he was a spiritualist in all different areas, including Buddhism and Hinduism and so on. The major point was that spirituality was really part of our way of being, and in reference to this, he links it into that really it's all an illusion. God is really right here at this moment in you. So from the perspective of how I got inspired by this book, I made contact, and then I went to New York with this address. And you want to get this, right? I get to New York. I get to New York looking for this guy that wrote this book called Anthony DeMello. And basically, I go and knock on the door, and it was a church. I had no idea.
Wow.
And then, yeah, it was a church. So in this church, I asked for Anthony DeMello, and eventually I come to the guy that actually wrote some of the preface to this book later years, but was also mentored, I believe, by Anthony DeMello, and his name was James Stroud. He was also a Jesuit. And I said, well, I'm here really to, you know, to meet Anthony DeMello. And he said, no, he's dead. He passed away quite a few years ago. And basically, for me, it was like, it was a knockout because I actually, in my naiveness and my innocence, I suppose, and vulnerability, I thought this guy was still around, you know, and I got on a flight to New York to go and meet somebody that I was really inspired by, but really he had passed. You know, but the moral of that story was don't stop knocking, because you knock on one door and other gifts come from that, even if it wasn't exactly the gift you were looking for. You know, that was the book that really inspired me. And of course there's many others, but every reader, you know, will get whatever, I suppose, they're looking for. Imagine if you could do anything and your reputation could not be attacked. You know, imagine if you could choose whatever you want in life with no guarantees, but basically the only guarantee is that life's going to still work out. Imagine going into action knowing that whatever you do, really, there's only gifts that are going to come from it. So for me, that's the state of mind. And the state of mind today, you know, is, I think, where really you got to put all this energy in basically keeping it all together, because there is so many contrasting and conflicting news, you know, and views that are constantly passed on to us. And, you know, and the thing about everything I'm sharing, Dom, today, to you, obviously, and to your listeners, what I put on as definitely a recommendation is don't believe anything I'm telling you. Please, I actually encourage you not to believe it. But what I request is that you go out, you know, and question things for yourself and do your own research and your own learning. So that's why awareness is important, you know, becoming aware of what's going on, because remember, we're not going to be here forever in this form anyway. And becoming aware is essential because our kids are our future. And if you look at kids, especially in the Western world today, you've got a lot of crisis happening with young people. We've got to lead by example, as mentors, coaches, parents, etc. Today, our kids, there's crises going out there in many areas. And, I don't have to tell you, right? Australia's statistics are not far from America's, and probably in some areas could be worse. For me, that's not a joke. It's not a joke. I mean, what is the point of having all the success, on the planet? And I'm talking about material or external, and everything on the inside is collapsing. So I definitely believe there's a moral crisis going on right now. And, the most important thing, I think, for adults today is to start being adults. Start being adults in the room, as opposed to immature kids. And, of course, with politics and all the nonsense that goes on, at times we get distracted with all the noise that's coming from corners that are really in the business of distracting us and creating enemies with all of us and definitely between us. This is the sort of stuff, this is what awareness basically shared with me. And that, for me, I strongly recommend for anyone to at least check it out.
Oh, I know. I'm going to check it out.
And let me know what you thought, by the way. Really keen to get your feedback, what you got out of it. Same to all your readers, by the way.
That's right. Send them some good old feedback. Let them know what you thought, because you can think and grow rich.
Absolutely. You can. But you've got to do something as well. You can't just think.
That's true. You can't just sit on your butt all day and think, because, you can have the greatest thoughts in the world, but if no one knows about it, you don't do nothing with it. It's nothing.
Exactly.
So if you're 25 in 2018 with all of your amassed knowledge, experience, and the available technology that we have today, what advice would you give to yourself?
Well, again, very similar to the previous questioner, or the one previous, that is get mentored by the best. At times, I've had a billionaire's life, not because I'm a billionaire, but because I've attracted billionaires in my life. So, how do you do that? By putting out an energy that attracts people, that want to play with you, right? And sometimes it's actually cool because you haven't got the responsibilities of some of those guys. But from a business point of view, it doesn't have to be that. It could be somebody that at least you admire, that certainly is creating, innovating concepts, operating, a business in a way that you love. Certainly get mentored by them, and certainly at that age, you want to start fishing for those opportunities. In relationships, one-on-one or universal, at 25, and by the way, this advice that I followed, but I share it as well, is definitely marry well. That's an essential one. In relationships, whatever you do, and if you're not going to get married, partner well, okay? But that's an essential one. I can't stress that one enough. And of course, in life, build your street smarts in conjunction with your book smarts, okay? And more important, learn from someone who has done it before you. So I mentioned about get mentored by the best. That also means, pick the groups you're going to be spending time with. And there's the old saying, if you sleep with dogs, you wake up with fleas. So it's important that you pick who you want in your space. Remember, this is your life, man, right? You're only going to get one shot at this. So at 25, the time to be making a lot of those decisions. Hopefully you're making some of them even earlier. But hey, 25 is still a good start. And pick your advisors also and your inner circle, people that you really trust and can share, okay? And really, they're on your side. They might challenge you. They might, give you a hard time at times, but they're on your side. They're in your corner. So when things don't work so well, they're going to be there. And I think psychologically, that's one of the biggest. That's why I think people that basically are not socially in tune with relationships, and this is a serious problem becoming due to technology and other reasons, that creates all sorts of other mental health stuff that goes on in people. So, your social groups are essential here. And of course, encourage your self-expression. I haven't met one client or person in my life that doesn't want to be self-expressed. Not one. So the self-expression is essential here. Also, the advice is basically at 25, listen also to adults I've always respected my elders. Okay, I was brought up that way. So from the perspective of elders, though, remember, they've been there before you. They've made silly mistakes that you don't have to make. If I listened properly in the late 80s when I lost millions to great mentors, if I'd listened to them and I dropped my ego, I would have, potentially had a different outcome. So this is important. It's essential that you recognize that. And by the way, also, know that at 25, you're going to screw up as well. So be light on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. There's nothing worse than beating yourself up, okay? That's, to me, self-sabotage. It's another form of self-destruction. Ultimately, what I say is life is beautiful. It's the biggest gift we've been given. So it's up to us how we basically expand that gift and make it so valuable to others in the sharing concept. And at the same time, if we do that, then of course, that gift also expands in us. So that's virtually where I'm at with all of that. Definitely at 25, hang around with the right people and get to know some really cool dudes that are going to be on your side, or gals for that matter.
Amen, indeed. Life is beautiful, the most beautiful gift ever. I agree with that, because you can't see the other gifts without the first gift known as life. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, all right. For those who want to keep in contact with you and keep up with what you're doing over there in the mighty Australia, how can we get in touch with you?
For sure. Our website is obviously www.imagegroup, that's one word, .com.au. All the social media links are from there as well, including, my email. But I can give it to you anyway. It's Jon for Jon Michail, Michail, at imagegroup.com.au. Very happy to hear from your listeners. And of course, if they've got any questions, any queries, happy to respond as well. And of course, join on LinkedIn. You can join on LinkedIn with me and see what we're doing, and we release articles there. And of course, we've got a great network of beautiful human beings that we interact with. So I'd love to have you guys on board as well.
Well, all righty, there you have it, folks. Australia's #1 image consultant, baby.
Thank you, Dom. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing with you, and I sincerely hope that your listeners have an awesome, expanding life. Till next time, stay well.
Thanks a bunch for your listening ears on the Going North podcast. I hope you really, really enjoyed that episode. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to share it with your friends and family, especially those who love podcasts and love listening to some inspiration and motivation. And keep a lookout for the sequel to Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself in October 2018. And if you'd like to connect with me directly, feel free to shoot me an email at dombrightmon@gmail.com.